He should have died. Might Guy, the blue beast of Konoha. He opened up the 8th gate, the gate of death. He gave everything in a final explosion of youth to stop Mamoru Uchiha, who had become the Ten-Tailed Jinchuriki, a true god amongst shinobi, was fighting against a demigod. But Might Guy survived, but he lost something critical when Naruto healed him. He lost his leg. Flash forward to 19 years into now the Boruto 2 Blue Vortex timeline. Konoha is now more scientifically advanced than ever before. Hashirama cells, synthetic limbs, Amato's technology, ninja tech, all of it is real. So why is Might Guy still in a wheelchair? Join me in today's newest Naruto Explained video where we're going to dive right deep into this topic. In order to understand why Guy's leg was never repaired, we need to understand the true nature of the 8th gate. In the Naruto world, the 8 inner gates, they aren't just about power-ups like people try to bullet down to. They are a deliberate override of your body's natural limitations, just as how in the real world, human beings can only access between 20 and 30% of what their overall strength level truly is. There are rare moments where a person can tap into 100% of their strength, but usually that leaves them extremely exhausted. For the Naruto characters, open up the 8 inner gates. That's what you do. Only when you hit the 8th gate, you die. So the 8th gate, the gate of death, it rips the chakra coils all the way apart. The user's blood begins to boil. Their skin, it begins to char. Their bones, they're cracking, they're shattering. Every cell, it is set on fire to turn the user into a living weapon. Guy's leg, his right leg, it didn't just break, it was scorched, it was melted, and it was biologically obliterated on so many different levels. The chakra pathways that are inside of every single cell of the body, they support muscle regeneration and they support prosthetic chakra synchronization. However, because of how the 8th gate works, that's pretty much gone. His leg was destroyed both on a cellular as well as a spiritual level. And the Naruto Shippuden anime did a really good job. It showed you them looking at Guy's leg and saying, hey fam, we can't fix this. Tsunade, at the time, the greatest medical mind in the ninja world at that moment in time, she tried to use Hashirama cells and even material from Zetsu's body to restore his leg, and even she failed. That's really important because if Tsunade, a medical wonder kid genius, wasn't able to make it work, then what does that tell us about the damage? It tells us that it wasn't just physical alone. It was also chakra deep. The 8th gate, it is like a spiritual suicide in a way. Surviving something like that, it is a miracle. And honestly, in all honesty, given that it was Naruto Jesus who came down from the heavens and he saved him from death, that's like Naruto getting one of the many miracles needed to become the next pope. Healing something like that, it should be impossible, but Naruto did it from using yin yang release in order to save Guy at that moment in time. And it gets even more crazy when you think about Kakashi and how as Hokage, he tried using Katasuke and those failed advancements in science, and that was done read between the lines to try and help his best friend Might Guy. So after the war, when Kakashi became Hokage, one of the first acts that he did during the time skip era, the blank period that you guys know it as, was to authorize public research into Hashirama cell technology and prosthetics, largely to help the war victims and help civilians and enhance the civilian capabilities. We learned this in the physical copies of Boruto's manga. You get these board card files that really tell you a lot about the world building. So Katasuke, the brilliant mind in the ninja tech advancement, he developed synthetic arms like the one that, say, Tsunade made for Naruto after the battle with Sasuke, and Katasuke made another version of the arm for Naruto. As we know, he was working with Ao and helped Ao after what happened when the Ten-Tails Bijudama killed everyone in the Shinobi HQ except for him. So we know that technology was used to different extents, but the problem is that when you look at with Naruto, it was a different situation than what happened to Might Guy. Naruto never used something like the 8th gate in that moment. Naruto's prosthetic, it was made from a stabilized use of the Hashirama cells. Not everyone can receive that type of technology successfully. The rejection rate, it was dangerously high. Think about how many people Orochimaru transplanted put Hashirama cells into and they all died. Naruto is a reincarnate of Ashras. It makes sense that Naruto at the very least was able to take the transplant from Hashirama and survive it. The same thing with Sasuke being a reincarnated Indra. That's why when Kabuto gave him Hashirama cells after Madara stabbed Sasuke, Sasuke didn't die. And even with Naruto, that was still done with careful engineering. When you think about it from this perspective, Kakashi hoped that he could use Katasuke to fix that for Might Guy, but the research, it didn't yield the success that they truly hoped for. Guy remains without a proper working leg, so why? Again, the 8th gate is the key here. It didn't just destroy the flesh, it erased the chakra flow itself. The prosthetics, they work on the Naruto world in this way. The recipient has to be able to regulate the chakra through that artificial limb. Naruto, even with that one missing arm, still had chakra coils to anchor the prosthetic too. Guy's leg wasn't just severed in the physical sense. The chakra foundation for that limb, it was erased. That also brings us to, well, why can't the mad scientist Amado help? It's something I've talked about myself. I talked about this several years ago when Amado first popped up in the manga saying, I'm coming to Konoha. So when you look at Amado and Boruto, he is by far the most advanced scientific mind that we have in the series. He surpassed even Orochimaru. He was able to transplant Shibai cells into multiple people. And as we see with his ninja tech, he's made people like Delta, Code, Kawaki, Kashin Koji, Boro. Every car inner member is a cyborg. He altered a human body and made them Otsutsuki tier fighters. So why wasn't Amato able to help Guy? So it kind of comes down to this. Think about Amato's priorities for a second. His main goals are creating Otsutsuki tier weapons for reasons that we could argue are debatable. Also, he wants to revive his daughter first through cloning, which is why we have like people like Delta and the various clones of Akabi, but also using the Karma seal in order to transplant her soul into it. And he also, if you take him at his word, wants to ensure that humanity survives the rise of these divine level enemies known as the Shinju, healing a retired shinobi who is now 51 years old, who isn't the fighter he used to be, isn't a mission critical task for him. It's just a pragmatic approach. I don't mean to sound ageist, but it's just one of those things like Might Guy is as helpful in this situation as an 80-year-old congressman trying to take a leadership position in Congress. Your time is over. And let's not forget something super important here. Amado, he doesn't heal. It's not in his character. He replaces. His methods, they wouldn't work on Might Guy ever again. They make him a weapon basically if he did it. Guy isn't somebody who would accept something like that, especially with Amado's sketchy past. Also, when you think about it, Guy in so many ways, he's already accepted his sacrifice. He was willing to give up his life in order to stop Madara before, and even though he survived, he still trains and does what he has to do. He shed his tears in the fact that they were not able to fix his leg. If you go with the anime only scene from Naruto Shippuden, it was not in the Naruto manga, but if you look at that, he's made peace with, but that's never stopped him from continuing to train and still try to be the best version of himself. Now it gets even deeper when you look at the Buddhism philosophy and just karma in general, not the karma seal, but karma as we know it in Buddhism. So this is where we take a step back from science and look even deeper. So in Buddhism, which as you know by now, it heavily influences damn near everything in the Naruto world, the body is seen as impermanent. The true self is not the flesh, but is the spirit, it is the will, it is the karma. Guy walked the path of youth, of explosive passion, and a pure will. He trained not to surpass others, but really to surpass his own limits. If you were someone like Kakashi in front of him, that was just a bonus of surpassing you in the case. Even if it came at the cost of his life, Guy was able to walk that path. When he opened the 8th gate, he accepted his death. What Naruto did when he stopped that node from his heart from shutting off, he saved Guy's life, but it was not without consequences. And as we've seen, even Naruto using Yin Yang release and the way that he did when he had Hagoromo's chakra, he wasn't some, I joke, Naruto ninja Jesus, but even Naruto had limits. That's why after Kaguya hit Obito with the Ash Bone Jutsu, he was not able to stop Obito from dying. So in Buddhism thinking, when one escapes from the jaws of death, the universe typically balances the scale. failed. Guy basically had to trade his leg to live, and to him, that's a perfectly fair trade. His leg was a symbol of his strength. Think about how many times you see Might Guy fight. He's using those legs in a lot of the attacks he uses. The leg work is a key element of the strong fist fighting style that Might Guy developed, but it's also the source of his greatest test. Losing it meant liberation from the burden of being a fighter. He's now in a situation where his soul has completed his journey. The body was never the point here. It was the soul, and he is passing that will of fire on to his student Rock Lee, who's now passed it on to his son Metal Lee. Now, as for why Guy can't ever fight again, let's be real for a second. So let's say hypothetically, I'm, the drug dealer standing on the corner, I'm going to sell you some coke for a second. So hypothetically, if Amado made Guy a new leg, let's say it's a chakra tech advanced leg that's good enough that he can walk all over again, would Might Guy be able to realistically fight? The enemies today are not Akatsuki level. They are Otsutsuki gods in some cases. They are 10-tailed spawns that have Code's chakra. They have Shibai cell transplants into them. They have influence from the Karma Seal. Boruto tells us as much, that they have influence from Ishiki's karma that's on Code. That power is Otsutsuki power. And in some cases, we have time warping reality benders if you go into some of the other characters. The scale of the battle, it's more on the divine side. We're past 10 tails, one-eyed Madara levels of power. Even with training, a 51-year-old man with one leg ain't keeping up. No access to chakra restoration and a broken gate system. He's not keeping up, not physically. Even if he had the extra leg and he's able to mold chakra with it, you kind of run into the issue that Hiruzen did when he was 69 years old. He was slowing down when he was fighting Orochimaru. Now you could argue, hey, the Sannin were in their 50s and they were fighting at pretty extended periods of time, and I will totally give you that. But that also goes directly against something that is key to the Naruto story. It's not his time anymore. Guy represents the previous generation. His purpose was never to dominate forever. It was to inspire the new era, and that's what he did. That's why you see Rock Lee training Metal Lee in Naruto chapter 700, which never got animated, by the way. And that's why we see someone like Sarada awaken the Mangekyo Sharingan when she has to fight Ryu. That is the theme of Naruto. That is the core theme. It's about passing the torch. The whole reason why you could do that with the legendary Sannin at the time is legendary Sannin had to take into different fights, like when Tsunade and Jiraiya were fighting Orochimaru, or you had Jiraiya fight against Pain, and etc., etc. That had to be done because at the time, the main cast characters of the new generation, basically Naruto and Sasuke and the members of Team 7, they weren't ready yet to take that first step as far as being the go-to lead yet. That was the purpose of the Fourth Great Ninja War. That does not apply here. The characters for Boruto's Team 7, they're strong enough to fight against the main antagonists that we have now in the Shinju. The old guard is not needed in the way that the Sannin are. Jiraiya died so Naruto could rise. The third passed so that the village could evolve. That led to Tsunade. Tsunade became an anchor towards Kakashi and then eventually Naruto. Guy is basically written to step back so that others can step forward. Even if Guy were to walk again, his story as a warrior, it's over purposely. And to take it a step further, his fate is poetically perfect. Guy's fate is one of the most poetic in all of Naruto. He trained his entire life for this moment where he could protect the world. He earned that moment. He shocked his rival Kakashi. He had Minato fanboying over him. He gave it everything he had. He never asked for a reward. He survived. He smiled. And he lives now in a time of peace, even in a wheelchair. His fire hasn't gone out. His strength lives on in Rock Lee. It lives on in Metal Lee. And every young shinobi inspired by someone who gave up everything. That's why they never show him having to beg for a new leg. That's why Konoha has never had to force one on him. That's why Amado narratively doesn't have to step in, because the story's already told us Guy doesn't need legs to stand tall. In a world with ninja tech and chakra gods, Might Guy is a reminder that strength, it isn't always about power. It's about conviction. It's about sacrifice. It's about heart. So no, He never got his leg back, but he gave us something much more lasting. It's proof that even when your body breaks, your spirit can burn brighter than ever before. Obviously, if you enjoyed this video, like, subscribe, and comment. And check out more videos from Naruto Explained by clicking here on the left, or check out videos from my other anime channels by clicking up top or on the right.